Welcome to Rinpoche's Paranormal Zone. I am in Bangkok and we are on the Amphawa Floating Market, which is 2 hours drive from Bangkok city itself. We are on the riverbanks here and there's a lot of action on the left and right, and I'll show you in a little while on the trip back because we've already passed all the action. And what's happening is there's a lot of people who live in houses on the left and right side of the river, and also restaurants and also shops, curios, and it's all open to tourists. It's very, very tourist friendly. And to get a boat here, it is 600 baht for the whole boat, and it closes at 10 p.m. So on Fridays, it is from 3 to 10 o'clock, and on weekends, it's 12 to 10 o'clock. All right? So what happens is this, is that we're going down the river, and I thought you'd enjoy the view with us. You can see the water on the left here. See it, we're going pretty fast, but it's a nice steady boat, you don't have to worry. Those who are faint of heart, don't worry. This week, I'm gonna talk about a story that happened to me in Thailand. I was staying in a monastery in South Thailand, and it's called Chang. And I had gone there for about a month to do a retreat. What a retreat is that when you take a certain deity and you go into meditation on a deity, and you recite the liturgy, and you perform the rites, and you go into a meditation on a particular path of the deity and recite the mantra a particular number of times. And what happens is I was there to do that, and I was there for a month, and it was beautiful because my room in the monastery was situated on a small little river. So what happens is that they built the monk houses, or the houses for people to stay, on top of a small river, and the river is flowing under your house. So every day, all day, you just hear this really gentle, caressing sound of water. And I met somebody there who had a cave in the monastery, because there was a lot of caves, and this cave was kind of dug out and clean, and it had a door, it had a lock, and it had an altar and a shrine space. So I asked my friend in the monastery to lend me the cave so I can do my meditation. So every day I'd be in my room. Wow, there's a beautiful, beautiful Wat here. A Wat is temple or monastery in Thai language. W-A-T, Wat. As I'm telling you the story, we can see this mystical, magical Chulamani Wat. Okay. So anyways, I was doing my meditations in the cave, and I was staying in the room that was allotted to me, and somebody brought to me a person, and it was a Malaysian guy, and he was a good-looking guy, tall and you know, well-structured, and he wanted to be an actor. And so I said to him, well, why don't you go and be an actor? And the guy said to me, well, because he has this problem. I said, okay, what's the problem? He says he blacks out. And when he blacks out, he doesn't know what happened. And I said, well, how long has this been going on? And he said to me that he's been blacking out for about a year and a half, 2 years now. And I said, how often? He said, it's random. Sometimes he just blacks out every day. Sometimes it's a few times a day. Sometimes it's every few days once. So it's really random when he blocks out, because just blacks out. I did a divination check for him, and what it said was this. It said that he was being afflicted by a snake spirit, and he had offended it. And I asked him, did he urinate near water, near a river, near a lake, or near a tree with water? And he said, in fact, he did. He said, you know, about a year and a half, 2 years back, he went with friends to a river area, and he actually urinated there. And after he urinated there, a few weeks later, this problem started happening. And I asked him, do you see spirits? He says, no. Have you encountered spirits? He said, no. I said, do you like spirits? He said, no. I said, are you interested in the paranormal? He said, no. He says he doesn't know what's happening to him, but he was by this river with a bunch of friends, and he urinated. And a few weeks later, he started blacking out. And his roommate in the monastery that was there filled me in on what happened. And what happened was this, is that when he blacks out, something enters him. And he lays down on the floor with his hands on the side of his body and his feet pointing straight, and he starts to wiggle or he starts to undulate. And it's really weird because he's acting as if he's some kind of a snake. And he actually hisses at people. You know, he makes a snake hissing type of sound, and it's really eerie and really spooky. He doesn't bite anybody, he doesn't hurt anyone, he doesn't disturb anyone, but something enters him and makes him act like a snake. And he lays on the floor moving like a snake. And on top of moving like a snake, he hisses at people, and his physical features starts to stretch back, and his face looks as if there's no eyebrows, or it's just like two eyes and a mouth and some nostrils. I mean, it looks really eerie. And while I was there at one time, that actually happened, you know, a few times actually. I noticed it, where this guy just lost consciousness, something entered him, he was on the floor writhing and undulating and hissing. You know, he wasn't violent, he wasn't aggressive, but he was actually hissing. And I said, okay, you know, I gave him some mantras to do. You know, in the Tibetan Buddhist tradition, there are some mantras you can do to stop this or to avert this. Now, as I said before, every religion, every tradition, every culture has a way to deal with these supernatural beings that seem to take possession, all right? I'm not saying that this is the only way, but this is the way I shared with him. So he happened to be Buddhist, so I shared with him how to do this. So he was to recite a mantra every day, and I told him that if he does this mantra, that the possession that he was experiencing is going to become worse for a while, because whatever is possessing him is going to try to coax him into not doing the mantra, threaten him into not doing the mantra. And you know, it was really bad, because at one point when I was staying at Chang Monastery, the spirit entered him and told him to jump. So in the middle of the night, the spirit would enter him, and he would walk out of his room, and he'd walk up the stairs, and he'd walk to the top of the roof, and the roof was flat because they were building more things on top. And when he got to the edge of the roof, the spirit would actually tell him to jump. You know, and at first it was a very gentle kind of just jump. You know, it's good for you. You should jump. Everything will be fine. And as the spirit got more violent, because he was doing the mantra, the spirit was telling him to jump more and more and more. And so he had a very strong urge to jump off the roof. His flatmate would follow him at night, and when he would be at the edge of the roof, his flatmate would hold him and pull him back and wake him up, because he was apparently, it seemed like he was sleepwalking, but he said that he blacked out. He doesn't remember, he doesn't know what's going on. But you know, a lot of these things his roommate was telling me, his friend. And so I continued doing the mantras, and I continued doing my retreat. And at a certain part of my retreat, I would recite the mantra, you know, 5, 10, 15,000 times, depending on time. And when I finished the mantra, I would send a signal, and his flatmate, his roommate, would bring him over to me in the cave, and I would blow the mantra onto his head. And when I blew the mantra onto his head, he would subside for a while. And I did that for about a month, every single day. And I think 20 days, 25 days into the month, after blowing every single day, he started to stop experiencing the blackouts. The blackouts became less frequent, less violent, and less intense. This is what he told me. So I told him to continue the mantra. And by the time I finished my retreat, whatever was affecting him, was possession of him, completely stopped. And I'm not the one with the power, you know, I'm not the psychic here, and I'm not the one that knows what's happening, but I know that I learned this mantra from my teachers, and it's very, very effective, very, very powerful. And what I found out was that the snake spirit who he offended by urinating into his space stopped entering him, could not enter him anymore. And the possessions completely stopped, everything completely stopped, and the boy was very happy. And by the way, he and his roommate both had taken temporary monk ordination, because in Thailand there's a novitiate program, or there's a program where you can take temporary monk. You can become a monk for 6 months, a month, 3 months, you know, 8 months, 1 year, 2 years. So this young guy, as I said earlier, was not interested in becoming a monk. He wasn't interested in the spiritual. He wasn't interested in anything. He wanted to be an actor. He wanted to be a model. And because this spirit kept entering him, he couldn't go get jobs, because when he went for jobs or he went for auditions, he would black out. So before he went to the monastery, he went to a few people, mediums and I guess you would call it in this part of the world bomos. Bomos are people who kind of do white magic and to stop this, but they couldn't help him. So he was so desperate, he took ordination as a monk, because when you take ordination as a monk, it's a blessing, and he entered the monastery to do retreats there, become vegetarian. So when I met him, he was at the edge, he was really at the last of his ropes. And what it was he had gone to a few people already, and they couldn't help him. And this was going on for about 2 months, and they couldn't do anything for him. And guess what? He out of desperation, he became a monk, not because he wanted to, because he didn't know what else to do. He thought by taking on the robes of a monk, he'd be protected. And he was in a monastery hoping that this possession would stop. So that's when I met up with him and his roommate, his friend. Anyways, after I did my retreat and we did the 1 month blowing on his head of the mantra and him doing the mantra, also the possession stopped. He was very happy. His flatmate was very happy, and the people in the monastery are very happy because they don't see him taking possession or trance anymore. And he wasn't blacking out anymore. And I asked him, is anyone asking you to jump now? He says, no. He doesn't feel anyone's asking him to jump anymore. So I said, what are you going to do? He says, well, he's taking off his robes and he's going back to secular life. He's going to go back to his home. He's going to go into modeling, all that stuff. And I said, congratulations, And I think about a year later, after this incident where I met him and we did this, somebody bumped into him and asked him, are you blacking out or anything happening? He said, no, nothing. He's not blacking out anymore. He's not having any incidences anymore. And he's fine now. So that's our paranormal story of the day in the Amphawa Floating Market. And I thought I'd share this with you, riding on a boat that we have rented for 600 baht on a very calm, quiet river that is, well, if you turn off all the lights, it would be quite eerie and quite spooky. Thank you very much for joining in. Good night.